If you have heard of robotic process automation, that is RPA, or if you work in the field, then at least once you've had a conversation with someone along the lines of, well, the robots are trying to take away our jobs through automation. But are they really smart enough to do something like that? Spoiler alert, they're not. So what is this fuss about? To address this exact question, I participated in a YouTube live session a few months ago hosted by my friend Vajrang. I'm bringing you highlights of that session along with a few questions that I answered at the end. And the topic of the session is RPA and human in the loop, and it talks about how RPA and automation in general is helping free up humans' time so that they can do better things with it, like upskilling their careers or doing more important stuff rather than just doing boring and mundane activities that don't teach us new things. I have a few questions and comments about the session, and I'll be back at the end of it to talk to you again. So I hope you enjoy the session. So RPA, I already briefly
a few
said
things about
a few things
RPA.
about
Currently,
RPA.
there are
Currently, there are
about
about
20 to 30.
20 to 30.
The official number
The
is
official number
55,
is
but
55,
20 to
but
30
20
really
to 30
prominent
really
RPA
prominent
companies.
RPA companies.
What RPA
What
is, it
RPA
stands for
it
Robotic
stands
Process
for Robotic
Automation,
Process
if you
Automation,
didn't
if
already
you
know
didn't
that.
already know
And
that. And
what it is,
what it
it is the
is it
ability
is the
for our
ability for
computers
our computers
to have work like
work like
a human would
a
work on the
human would
computer.
work
So
on
we
the
have
computer. So we
software
have
programs.
software
These are
programs.
called the
These are
RPA
called the
tools.
RPA
They
tools.
can build
They can
script
build
programs that
script
can go
programs
and
that
talk
can
to
go
your
and talk to your
Chrome browser,
Internet Explorer, or any applications that you might have on your machine. It can send out emails, it can receive emails, read them with its own credentials, and do a lot more powerful stuff that humans don't have to do, because they can then do more valuable stuff, something that requires cognitive input, such as decision making or speaking to customers, some things that cannot be automated, and those are the real ones that bring value to every business. Now, what I'm talking about now is, it will sound a lot like business friendly or something that companies, top managements care about, but let me assure you that I typically speak to people who only who are coming from an employee perspective, because that is the one that I want to explore. How robotic process automation or a career in RPA can help you improve your own career position. That is the side I speak to. So even though some concepts that I'm covering, they might sound like business oriented, but they are actually about the career that we can potentially build using RPA. So I have this graph in front of me for those who might be listening to this in an audio format, like on a podcast. Eventually, it's basically just a graph of what RPA has looked like in the past 6 years, starting in 2016, and what we can see clearly is just it's an amazingly improved graph over the last 6 years. It's incredible how much in how little time it has taken for RPA from going something that was just being introduced in training sessions for existing employees in companies, to now we are looking at like 5 years experience and getting incredible job offers for people who are familiar with RPA. So if you look at this graph, it is to emphasize that RPA is definitely it's a very new technology. Even though this looks like we've come quite far, it's still in its very baby stages. If you go and read some RPA companies' websites, you will see that they've been around for 13 years, 14 years. They've been founded technically for that long. But actually, if you really think about RPA, or if you go back in time, study some material, you'll find out that in the last 6 to 7 years, the uptake on RPA has been phenomenal. Nobody even heard about RPA except for the people who were really in that niche market before that. Now RPA is just like a household name, or in the context of a workplace. So it's both. It's still new, but it's already growing. It has already grown a lot. So the one question that I want you to ask yourself and to the hosts of this session is WIIFM. What is in it for me? That's the question. So why should you care if RPA or human in the loop has anything to do with what you are currently working on? You may not be at all working on RPA right now, but what it can do is it can probably give you some perspective on what robots can do for you even in your current job, whether you are an RPA developer or you have no idea what RPA is doing in your own company. There is something that you can still take away from the robots, and that's why I always want you to ask this question: what's in it for me? And what's in it for you is, if you have some context about what human in the loop is, uh, as the name already suggests, it's something to do with non-automation parts. So what we want to do is robots to be able to work with humans, because whenever we hear about robotic process automation, it's always like automation is here to take away our jobs or replace our jobs. That is the notion that was quite prominent like a few years back. And what the industry has done really well to convince is, or actually prove, that the robots are not here to replace, but actually replace only the boring parts that humans have to do, so that humans can do better stuff and more efficient stuff that helps them, their careers, and also the businesses they work for. So what's in it for you is, if you know what robot can do for you, you can ask or demand that your company does that, so that you can do better stuff, you can learn and grow your skills. So that is what I want you to take away from this. Now, just I've already spent quite a lot of time on RPA, so I'll keep this one quick. But this is the latest Gartner report, which is it's a company that does research and ranks all the companies for all different domains. As far as RPA is concerned, we have a few leaders, and this one that you see here, UiPath, has been consistently in this spot for the last 3 years, 4 years. So UiPath is one of the best uh, software providers in RPA space. And the most beautiful part about it that I love is that from the start they've always been open source friendly, open and community friendly. So they've always had a component where you can completely download for free and get started for free. All their education is free, and they give you all these resources that enable you to at least get started on the basics of automation. Of course, then you should, if it interests you, you should seek out better help, like get expert help. For that also, they have a community which is open and very helpful. So we Vajrang and I, we are proponents of UiPath. I have dealt with Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, and Microsoft platform as well. But UiPath is definitely something to think about if you're looking at a career in RPA. And we will be going over a little bit of UiPath at the end of the session. So please stick around. So those of you who have joined in the last couple of minutes, maybe what you're looking at is probably human in the loop. I'm not sure, but so we just kept it on the screen, so just to have some fun. But that's not what we're talking about today. That is not human in the loop. So let's then define the outline of what we are actually going to do today. So we'll cover a few W words today. That is, what is human in the loop? Why is it important to learn for you? Like I already said, that is the question you should always be asking when you learn something new. And that's not coming from a selfish standpoint. I actually want you to always learn something, because if you're not learning something new, no matter where you're working, it doesn't matter if you're not preparing for the tomorrow, because the workforce is continuously changing. And if you're upgrading your skills, you're always ready to get somewhere. And you should always be employable. So that's why I want to encourage you all to ask this question always. So why is it important to learn human in the loop? We'll see that a little bit. And then we can move on to specifically in the context of RPA, where do we use human in the loop there? And then a few real examples of how you can implement it if you're working on, say, UiPath or Microsoft, etc. So I'll go to the next one, which is let's define what is human in the loop. So the technical definition is basically it is a model of software or physical, like mechanical machinery that requires human interaction. So it could be a physical robot, or it could be a software program like the kind we build in RPA. What it is uh, we introduce a human into the workflow or into the flow of an automation, so that we can review their work, step in, intervene, give it back some input if required. And then there will be some parts of the workflow where you need some kind of cognitive decision making, something that is not easily automatable, or it has just too many variables, too many moving parts, and then it becomes difficult to capture that in the scope of an automation. So those are a few things that apply to RPA. The last two that you see on my screen, the simulations and training programs. So human in the loop is also technically applied to things like flight simulators, where we want to minimize human errors, or if there are human errors, there should not be a casualty or loss of actual loss of life or loss of material. So flight simulators are a good example of a human in the loop, where we train them on fictitious software that imitates an actual plane but isn't actually a plane. So things like that. So our training programs are conducted on human in the loop. We are not going to be looking at any of that, so that's why I marked it in a different color. But that's basically what human in the loop is. Now let's come to the most important question: why is it important for you to learn? So as I said before, a little bit about me. So you saw that graph earlier, that from 2016 to 2022, and it's coming up again in the slide. But this is my graph, my career's graph, and I was working as a Java developer up until 2016. And in 2016, this is a little bit of a story, but my childhood friend, who I always wanted to work with, he joined IBM, and he said they are hiring for something, some new developer position, and would you like to apply? And I had nothing better to do. I felt like I was done with Java, so I thought, why not? And the interview was pretty much only on Agile, and I wasn't sure why I was being hired, because all they asked was about my experience with Agile development. And they did ask me about have you done any kind of script automation, etc., which I had. So of course that helped me. But what they explained to me is they are going to train me on a software that goes to different software, different systems, and does things which is like, and they kept calling it software robots. And I actually, for a moment, I visualized actual physical robots walking on the floors doing stuff. So that was my introduction to RPA. But anyway, I eventually figured out that he was talking about a software program. So they trained me on Blue Prism in 2016, and after that I just got curious, and I ventured into Automation Anywhere and UiPath a little bit. As you can see, I worked with Automation Anywhere for 3 years, but I stopped eventually. But UiPath, I haven't been able to put down since I picked it up. So I continue to work on that. My current company, they exclusively work with UiPath, so I do a lot of stuff there. And yeah, so I, like many people, can vouch that this is definitely a really good company to, or a really good software to learn for you. Enough about me. What I wanted to say about this is, if you then put it against my entire career, if I do it, it's just I've only worked 7 years so far in RPA, and in Java I was working even longer than that, and even still it feels like I've learned so much in RPA, because in the last 6 years so much has changed. And why that is important to note is, if you look at any technology, when it was introduced to the world, like Java, for example, it came out 20 years ago. When it came out, it was a very basic level programming language. And today, the world's most secure websites run on Java or .NET. Apple, most of us were alive when the first phone hadn't even been created, first mobile phone. And the technology already has changed so much that we have more powerful computers in our pockets than we have actually on our desks. So technology always changes, and given a time like 20 years or 25 years, the technology has gone so far. And if we can just see in 6 years, the RPA space has grown so much, there's only room for more. And how that ties in with what I was talking about earlier with human in the loop is that, 6 years ago, automation wasn't, or RPA wasn't being targeted as, the most state of the art automations. We were just looking for anything that can bridge the gap. So um, let me go down one slide. So this is an image that came up a lot in most of the meetings that I attended about 5 years ago, where for again those who are listening to it only in audio format, this is an XY graph where the axes are complexity and benefits. So low complexity, low benefits are like the low hanging fruit. You just have one automation where a ticket comes in, someone gets assigned, and an email is sent that we are looking into it. That's a very simple automation. We can definitely get a robot to do that and build it and be happy. So that's an immediate win. Quick wins are kind of there's more benefit in it, but the complexity still stays low. So those are still good because we can also automate those and actually gain more or save more time. So those are obviously easily done, but there's only so much that we can automate like that, because not all processes are built equal, and many processes are very complex and they need more than just low effort, low hanging fruit kind of deals. So what to do with long-term improvements or must-do improvements? So in the last 5 years, we've dealt with a lot of low-hanging fruits and quick wins, and even for the technology, it was time that it started to deal with more complex stuff. But as more complex stuff, the problem with more complex stuff is it is more complex. If you started to plot a process, it would get really difficult to cover everything. It does get difficult. So that's why we need humans in the loop. So what we do here is basically we introduce intentional waypoints where an automation would do a few steps, and then someone needs to correct or make sure that whatever that robot has done so far is good and it can proceed to the next one. If not, they can reject it there, or they can manually process it, so get the robot to reject it. We can build all sorts of workflows using humans in the loop, and that is why that's how the new processes are being built. So if you are in this space, or even if you are in the workforce, set aside RPA for a minute, but if you are in the workforce, you are probably on the receiving end of this change, where you will be subjected or you'll be introduced to a process where you'll be told a robot is going to do, let's say, email monitoring. So you don't have to monitor that shared mailbox anymore. But when the robot picks it up, it will say do a few things with it. It will check the attachments and then send you a verification call, and it'll ask you whether whatever it has done, whatever it has understood from the email is correct. Then you correct it if needed. Otherwise, you say approve or this looks good, proceed, and then it will proceed, and so on and so forth until we've reached the final goal. So that's pretty much how the new processes, new workflows are being built. And I bring you back to that question: why is it important to learn? Because it doesn't matter whether you are on the building side, that is delivering side, where you are building that automation, or on the receiving side where you are actually part of that automation process, where you are the human in that loop. You need to know about this, because when you understand how these robots are working and what they are doing to improve your life, it becomes easier. And not just that, in my experience, in most cases, we actually have better results when people on the receiving end are more receptive to these workflows, because what they do is they have the most brilliant ideas. They are the process experts in every sense of the word. We call them SMEs, subject matter experts, in the context of RPA, because we get their help to build the automation workflows. So if you are someone who is listening to this and thinking that you are already in one of these processes where a robot tells you what it has done so far and you correct it, then it is important for you to understand this as well, because then you can suggest better automation ideas, and that is how we come to a better win, or that is how we automate better or more complex workflows. Now let's come down to the RPA. So I'll briefly go over where is it used in RPA. Now RPA, I'm only covering a few, because we could go into the details of every company and how it delivers the humans in the loop. Not all of them do it, by the way, but I'll just keep it to the leaders that we earlier saw in the Gartner quadrant. So UiPath, Microsoft has a very wide array of technologies called the Power Platform. It has Power Automate, Power BI, and a few others, Microsoft Flows, that is the business flows. So that Power Platform and the Automation Anywhere, they offer OCR as one of the pieces where human in the loop can be inserted. And then the other one being long-running workflows. So these are at a very high level conceptual things about where human in the loop can be introduced. I drew this line in dots because Automation Anywhere has a kind of something called Workflow Designer, but I've never seen a practical use of it. So if you have, I would like to learn from you. But yeah, all these other arrows that you see, they work quite well. They have several different offerings, and we are going to focus on specifically UiPath. And just for the benefit of this session, there's nothing such as wrong with any of the other technologies. I'm just saying that we are going to cover only one, and that too I'm not going to give a technical demo where I just build out everything and run it. We're going to look at what potentially can happen if you decide to go with the human in the loop in RPA. So let's look at the examples. In terms of the UiPath human in the loop, there is something called document understanding, which is the OCR piece I was talking about earlier, and the long-running workflows, which are like the workflows that I described earlier, where humans in the loop are introduced and they step in at different stages to make sure everything's fine. Now, how UiPath implements it is there is document understanding on one end, which is a completely different purpose. It solves a different purpose. Long-running workflows, they solve a different purpose, but they both collaborate onto something called Action Center, where humans will only have to access this one piece, and every robot, whether it's coming from a document understanding project or long-running, they can create a verification task for the humans to only validate in Action Center, and then take their input and move on, do whatever has been instructed by the human. That is how UiPath plays with it. And now I'm going to just briefly go into UiPath Studio and show you if you wanted to start learning, what resources you could use, and what are the things that are available for you at your disposal. So I'll quickly jump into UiPath Studio. If you're not familiar with this platform, or if this with this window, this is an RPA developer tool. We build automations using this. This is a developer's license software that is available for free to download from UiPath's website. You can go to cloud.uipath.com and get started for free. If you need any more technical details, Vajrang is the guy to ask, because he literally does that full time. So yeah, you're welcome to talk to him about that in detail. Now, what I want to focus on here is when you're starting a new project, you have a few templates to choose from. And what I was showing earlier with the document understanding, that is a type of project available in UiPath Studio. So if you can't see it here, you just need to go in here where there are templates available, and the document understanding process is available here. If you can't see it, you just need to click include pre-release. Now it looks like the document understanding is out of pre-release, so you can see it anyway. So you can download the template, use the latest version, and you can start working with document understanding. We will quickly look into what it looks like. So the other process that we have is I was talking about long running workflows. Long running workflows are something called orchestration process. So if you go to the UiPath Docs website, in the UiPath Docs website, you will be able to see orchestration process, and you can also create a project from here. So if you click on orchestration process, it will give you a ready to use template, and that project will be set up for you, ready to go. You can right away start building your automation with a human in the loop component included. I've already created 2 projects just to go into a little bit details. So let's go with document understanding first. So I have this project here, which is created from the document understanding template. What document understanding is in brief is we get a lot of emails, or we have processes where PDFs or photographs are attached. For example, any invoices are there in PDF format, or some kind of expense claim that is being made. We just typically get people to take photos of them, and then they send it through an email. We have to scan it. Someone has to manually read the details from that paper and then submit them into a system. What document understanding does is it reads that paper, and it's able to extract everything optically. So OCR stands for optical character recognition, and OCR will be able to extract everything from that document, and we have the means here in this framework to train that automation to specifically look at things that are meaningful, such as if it's an invoice, we want to extract the invoice number, the invoice date, who it is going to, what is the last payment date, or payment deadlines, and what are the actual line items, which is like every line item on that invoice. So there could be multiple. So we would want to get that structured data out of the invoice and into an electronic format, so that we can then do with it whatever we please. Like we can save it in a database, we can run a different process through it, initiate something else. So all these things are possible. Why we need a human in the loop in this context is the images that people send are not always in the best quality. Sometimes they're just scans of scans of scans, or sometimes they're just photos that someone put on a desk and took a photo. So because the angle was not exactly horizontal above it, they were skewed, and things like these will always mess with how that text is read by a computer. A human can obviously make sense of it, but then that is the manual effort that we are trying to minimize here. So what we are able to do is we digitize that document, which means we read it. By digitizing, we can read every text letter. The automation, the robot, reads every letter, and it also understands what that document looks like. Then it classifies it, which means it decides whether it's an invoice or something else. So one email or one source could have multiple types of different documents, different PDFs, and we need the classification to understand what document we are dealing with, so that we can extract it better, understand it better.
Ashutosh, sorry to interrupt you. So there was a question regarding document understanding, since you have started with document understanding, and it's from Parvati, and she was asking, document understanding has a validation state, how this can be effective in production manner, because the process flow pauses for validation. It can be it be effective in the development or deployment?
Yes. So validation station, it's a good thing you brought it up, because that was exactly where I was going with this. The validation station is the human in the loop component here. What we are able to do is anything that the robot has been able to extract, we send it to a human through a validation action. So there is a difference in validation station and action. The slight difference is that with station, it's sort of an attended automation where someone runs it on command, and they get a window right then and there, and they have to complete it so that that process can continue. So it will ask you, the robot will ask you runtime to validate that data, and then if you say everything looks good, the robot will continue. It will wait for that window to close, complete. But if you close it in between, that automation fails because it cannot continue. You did not provide the input. Um, but what the validation action is able to do is it's able to suspend that automation until someone decides to process that one particular validation. uh, in this in the context of human in the loop, what it is doing is, or what it enables us to do is, let's say we have 50 invoices coming in, we could potentially start 50 different instances of this same automation. 50 validation actions will be assigned to human users, but the robot will not have to wait for one to complete. If someone comes in and completes the fifth task that was created, only that task will automatically resume, and the robot will complete the rest of the flow only for that one instance. And that's the difference between validation station and action. uh, with Parvati's question, I think I believe that's what she was trying to understand. Or if you have a different production related question, then we can
No.
probably take it offline.
What exactly? I think you have already answered it. So Parvati, to just make it simple, validation station will be used only if there is any process that requires it. You can turn off the validation station and you can still use the document understanding, and that can be used, and you can later validate with the results. Okay, so let's see what Ashutosh have if in for us for the demo. Let's go, Ashutosh. I'll go on mute.
Okay. All right. So just continuing with that. So after classification, we basically extract and we run any business rule validations on top of that. So this framework is actually designed so that you don't have to get confused. There's literally no space for confusion. You just that is how exactly the workflow runs. And these are just the files, that extra functions that have been written for this framework. But if you look at the main process, which has been already so well built by the UiPath template developers, what it does is it already gives you that flow, how it is going to run, and not just the files one by one. It actually also puts a few checks. So this process is built to automatically follow all these in intricate details. It also has all sorts of exception, fail safes, etc. So let me pull up the validation part. So as you'll see, it's kind of similar to the workflow that I was showing in my presentation earlier, where we come to a place where we need to check if something has gone as we expect. If it has, then we just continue. But if not, then we send it for a validation, validation station. So we are trying to classify the document, and then we wait for document classification. So this is the one I was looking for. Now, just a little bit of detail on that, and I'm aware of the time, so I'll keep it short. What you should be looking out for whenever you create these two templates is it supports persistence. This is important because what I was describing earlier is the robot is able to wait for the user to come back and action an item, an action. So if it supports persistence, that is possible. But if we don't support persistence, then basically it has to be a complete synchronous process. It cannot be asynchronous. It will not wait for a user to complete the action. So that is the difference. The same thing I would have also shown in the orchestration process. So I'm sorry to cut this off, but we are not doing a document understanding session. It's very easy to blur the lines for me because I just keep it going into details. But what I really wanted to show is the wait for document classification action, or there is also a wait for validation action, and then I would have to look for it, but it's in this framework somewhere. And what it does is it waits for the user, and if it supports persistence, it can do that for multiple files at a time, and the robot will automatically understand, not robot but orchestrator, which is the system that runs all these automations. It will understand which exact instance to resume based on whichever task has been completed. So this task or action will go to action center, where a human can action it or complete that. This won't take long. This is the other type of project, which is the long running workflows. I only created this from the framework. There is a very small framework and all the files are provided here. But if you don't, even if you don't use this framework, one cool thing that every UiPath project comes pre-built with is this snippets tab, where if you just go into UiPath Studio and open any project, even RE framework, which is the most default project now, you can always go to orchestration and find the create task and wait for tasks. So there are different types of tasks that can be created. There is a form task and there is an external task. So I would definitely recommend going to UiPath docs and reading about it. At the end of the session, I have a URL which will have all these resources. Once the session is complete and the video is available, I'll make sure all the links are also uploaded to that page. It's on rpaforeveryone.com, and it'll be always there. So you can, even after the session, 1 week, 1 year from now, you can go and read that. So yeah, it'll be available. Again, just to cover that, this process also supports persistence, and in this case it also starts in background, which is a different feature. It's only for background processes. So if something does not require any surface automation at all, like logging into a Chrome browser or opening an application and doing a few things, then you can create a background automation which can run with another background automation. So you can have multiple robots running multiple processes on the same machine without disturbing anyone, each other. So that's another cool thing that's provided by UiPath. So those are the two types of projects that primarily involve humans in the loop. And again, as I was showing the create form tasks and create tasks, all these tasks, there's also a wait activity for these. You just simply open one of these snippets, copy the code and make a workflow out of it. And you can simply have a process that waits for you to complete the action and then resumes automatically. So definitely go check that out. I'll come back to my presentation, which there's none left after this. That was pretty much the last part I wanted to show. That's my website, and that is the URL that I was talking about, rpaforeveryone.com/HITL, human in the loop, easy to remember. So if you go there after the session, I'll upload all the resources that I talked about and anything else that came up. And yeah, you can have access to that anytime in the future when you watch this video. So thank you from me. And if there are any questions, we can, answer some now.
And meanwhile, Astosh, what you can do is you can just do a screen share. Screen share is already on. Just open your YouTube as well as Insta profiles so that we will just share it up.
So yeah, that's me. You can look me up just by my name. Thankfully, this name is, I think, unique enough that it comes up at least easily. So you should be able to find me relatively easier. And I am doing some stuff behind the scenes. So right now the videos are on pause, but yeah, hopefully soon there will be a series launching soon. And yeah, you can find out from Vajrang's channel or my channel. I'll make sure that he tells you about it as well. So that is my channel. You can look me up on LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. So let's just wait for some questions. If we don't have any questions, then we'll definitely close it.
So I see a question from Sarita. She's asking, may I know in which UiPath version document understanding framework is available?
Yeah.
So document understanding framework is available in UiPath Studio across any version. All you have to do is just go to the templates, because it's not by default pinned to the templates tab. You just need to go and look for it. So if I share my screen just one last time, when you go into your start tab, if you don't see it here, I see it here because I've recently used it, so it's in my recent. But typically these are the pinned ones that you will see. So document understanding is not here. You can create a robotic enterprise framework and some default templates are available. But if you go here, Now there are, again, as I was earlier showing, if you don't see it like this, then also check include pre-release. But the good news now is document understanding process is available even outside the pre-release part. So there are two stable versions. Depending on which UiPath Studio you are on, you can download one of these. So I did say that it's available with any studio, but you'll probably have to just check the compatibility of the studio. If you're really on some obsolete version that unfortunately, because the company that you're in hasn't yet upgraded, which should be happening soon, because the way UiPath lifecycle works is that they bring the older versions out of support, and then automatically the existing installations are updated. So you should be able to find easily the DU process. And if you don't, then obviously just you can check with Vajrang or me on LinkedIn or any other channels. We are on every social. So yeah, let us know if you have any problems there.
So what do you think, Ash? Which tool do you think will be the next future of RPA? I do understand UiPath is already leading, but with competition with UiPath, what do you think?
No. Well, I mean, to be honest, I don't consider myself, qualified enough to answer that question. But we have seen quite a few different tools coming up with really cool stuff in the recent years. So Microsoft, for example, is doing a lot of cool stuff with Power Platform, as I already mentioned. So, why Microsoft has a little bit of foot in the door, because every company is already on Office 365, which makes it really easy to integrate with Teams, integrate with Microsoft Power Flow, which are, if you're on Office 365, it's a good point, because if anyone listening to this, if you're already in a company where Microsoft Office 365 already exists, you can definitely get started on Power Automate, at least the basic stuff. There are quite a few things that are only available for premium, which means your company would have to be paying for the Power Platform. But you can still do a lot of basic training on your own, and the Power Platform is available to learn for free on the Visual Studio website, or if you just Google Microsoft Power Platform training, you'll see a lot of training courses that are available for you to get started. So UiPath Academy and Microsoft Learning, two of the most abundant available resource for RPA if you are interested. And I already said 2-3 times, so I sound like a broken record at this point, but if you're learning UiPath, go join community.uipath.com. That it's a forum, which if you post a question that a good question, so you'll get an answer within the next hour. That is how active the community is. We are already in company with someone who was a champion poster last week. I just saw your post, Vajrang. So
Thank you. I actually don't know how did I get it. Somehow I posted some things that are required for the community. So I understood that if you post something that is required for the community, and if more people see it and more people respond to it, and that's how you can see your name in the top leaderboard. But we have a message from Nitin George. The session was amazing. Thank you so much, Ash and team. Sarita Niharika. Is it Microsoft?
Thanks, Nibin.
Nibin, right? So Sarita is saying, is Microsoft tool user friendly? Every tool is user friendly if you are able to learn it and if you are able to use it. So just don't depend on one tool. You can definitely go ahead with multiple tools. But what I suggest is, if you want to have more opportunities and if you want to be in the market, you cannot use a tool that only your company is using, and you cannot go with the tool and crack a job in the market. So you should always follow the trend to be in the trend. Okay.
So also, Sarita, I saw a couple of other questions as well in the I was scrolling up.
Sure.
So you do have questions about document understanding. We will definitely try and have a session probably in the future about that. But since we were focusing on human in the loop, there were other stuff to cover. So sorry about that. But just to add to Vajrang's point, the tools are user friendly, because one thing that I didn't really get into a lot is currently the way technology has been working, like if you look at any other technology that was working, like let's say coming up 10 years ago, they were more focused on just keeping it to the developers, make it easy for developers or make it easy for the technology to work on its own. But now a major shift that we've seen recently, especially with RPA, is that it's not just a technical person or a non-technical person. That divide has kind of blurred into something that is now called citizen developer.
Yep.
So if you're a citizen developer in RPA, that means you're coming from a business point of view rather than from a technical standpoint. So to make it easy for any business user to break that barrier and build their own automation, UiPath, Microsoft, they've all made the citizen developer program really easy to access, and that's like an entry level automation learning. And then you can definitely delve more into high profile stuff like actual development in the UiPath Studio platform. So if you are, I'm not sure how your current work profile is, but if you are completely new to RPA, I would suggest look into the citizen developer program for Microsoft or UiPath.
Yep.
And that is a really good place to start, and then you can go from there.
Exactly. So citizen developer program also, like you can use UiPath citizen developer
Studio
theme,
X.
Studio X theme. That's just a theme, but all the functionalities you have for a developer, you will still have for a citizen developer. All you need to use, all you need to know is it will just give you a better design view, so that you will be able to understand and you will be able to work on it. Okay, so that's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much, Ashutosh, and everyone, please hit a like for this video stream, and as well as go ahead and check out his Instagram. I have kept the Instagram handle across my current video. It's @RPA for everyone in Instagram. So go ahead and check out, give it out a thumbs up.
Yeah, that is my Twitter, Facebook, everything. So RPA for
Exactly.
everyone is basically, you can look me up on any platform. That's the same handle.
Exactly.
I've made sure. And also, if you found this helpful, or if you know someone who's they may be struggling to get into RPA, or they're maybe just now getting introduced to RPA, please definitely share with them, because
Sure.
like I said, the question you should always be asking is, what's in it for me? So if you probably don't need it right now, maybe you're in a good space. If someone else that needs it really, please make sure to share with them. And yeah, that is the best thing that we can ask for right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And Parvati says, good session. Hope we see more. Absolutely.
Thanks, Parvati.
With great speakers like Ashutosh, I can bring in great information for you all to get started and to get rolling up.
Hi again. I hope you enjoyed that session and that it answered some of your questions about RPA technology and its future. If you found it helpful, then I only ask that you share it with your other friends who might also find it helpful. And if you have any questions or comments about the stuff that was discussed in the session, then please drop it in the comments, and I promise I'll get to each and every one of them as best as I can. Thank you.